Once upon a time, in a small town forgotten by time, there was an orphanage known as the House of Hope. This orphanage had been founded in the late 19th century by Miss Adelaida Vargas, a strict and devout woman who dedicated her life to caring for abandoned children. However, what people didn't know was that Adelaida had a dark secret. She performed occult rituals in the orphanage's basement, believing that by doing so, she could prolong her life and maintain control over the orphanage forever. One night, during one of these rituals, something went horribly wrong. The villagers heard screams coming from the orphanage, screams that chilled the blood of anyone who heard them. The next morning, Adelaida's body was found in the basement, disfigured in an indescribable manner, with her hands severely mutilated. The orphanage closed its doors, but years later it was reopened by the government in the hope of providing a new home for children without families. Since then, stories began to circulate among the new caregivers and the children of the orphanage. It was said that Miss Adelaida's spirit roamed the halls, especially at night, looking for something or someone. The caregivers noticed that children disappeared without a trace, and those who managed to survive spoke of cold hands dragging them into the darkness. The fear began to grow when the caregivers started to experience strange things. One day, the new director, Mrs. Lopez, was reviewing the children's reports when she felt a presence behind her. When she turned, she saw no one, but a shadow moved quickly across the corner of the room. The whispers became more frequent, and a feeling of despair enveloped everyone in the orphanage. One night, Mrs. Lopez decided to stay late to investigate the increasing number of disappearances. While reviewing old records, she found a diary that belonged to Adelaida. The entries detailed the rituals and sacrifices she had made to prolong her life and how she needed the children's energy to maintain her power. The last entry described the ritual that led to her death and how her spirit would remain trapped in the orphanage, seeking revenge and sustenance. Reading this, Mrs. Lopez felt a chill run down her spine. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker, and the room's temperature dropped sharply. A shadowy figure appeared in the corner of the room, with eyes full of hatred and hands covered in blood. The shadow lunged at Mrs. Lopez, who tried to scream, but her voice was silenced by a cold, slimy hand flapping over her mouth. The caregivers, alerted by the noise, ran to the director's office, but when they arrived, they found the room empty, except for Adelaida's diary, open to the last page. In the following days, the caregivers began to notice changes in Mrs. Lopez's behavior. She seemed distant, as if under a spell. Soon, she started leaving the orphanage at night, returning with more children she claimed to have found on the streets. One of the caregivers, a young man named Manuel, suspected something was terribly wrong. One night, he decided to follow Mrs. Lopez on her nocturnal search. What he saw left him horrified. Mrs. Lopez not only brought children to the orphanage, but also took them to the basement, where Adelaida's specter waited. Manuel watched, paralyzed with fear, as Adelaida's shadow fed on the children's vital energy, leaving only empty, lifeless bodies. Manuel knew he had to stop this, but how could he fight such a powerful spirit? Desperate, he decided to investigate more about the rituals and found a way to exorcise Adelaida. He needed to perform a purification ritual in the exact spot where she had died. Gathering all his courage, Manuel armed himself with candles, salt, and an old spellbook. He descended into the basement, determined to free the orphanage from Adelaida's curse. As he performed the ritual, Adelaida's spirit appeared, furious, with her arms extended towards him, her rotten hands hanging from her wrists, fingers moving desperately, splattering a green, slimy substance. The candles began to go out one by one, and Manuel felt the darkness closing in on him. With his last strength, he finished the spell and turned the salt around the circle of protection. A spine-chilling scream echoed throughout the orphanage as Adelaida's spirit was dragged into the abyss, disappearing in a whirlwind of shadows and fire. The orphanage fell silent. Exhausted, Manuel emerged from the basement, finding the caregivers and children waiting for him, terrified but hopeful. With Adelaida's spirit finally exorcised, peace returned to the House of Hope. However, the stories and whispers persisted, reminding everyone of the Sanders' dark history and the terrifying nights they endured under her curse.